The galaxy looked calm, but silence often hides danger. Stars burned brightly, planets spun quietly, and countless civilizations carried on with their daily lives. Yet, deep inside the void, something old was waiting. Something hidden beneath the galaxy's face. Explorers had long whispered about strange shadows that never matched the stars around them. Merchant ships sometimes vanished without leaving even a distress signal. Patrols sent to investigate returned with broken minds, unable to explain what they saw. They spoke of shapes moving in the dark, larger than any ship, faster than light itself. The rest of the galaxy chose to ignore these warnings. It was easier to believe in trade, alliances, and politics than to face the idea of something unseen watching from the dark. But humans had always been different. On Earth, stories of shadows had been told for centuries. Ghost ships at sea, strange lights in the sky, monsters in the night. Humanity had learned never to laugh at warnings. When the first signals of missing ships reached human ears, they did not dismiss them. They listened, they prepared, and they began to search. The Titan-class vessel Resolute was the first to move into the unexplored void. It was not the largest ship in the galaxy, but it was the heaviest human warship ever built. Its engines rumbled like thunder, and its armor was thick enough to resist weapons that could tear moons apart. Inside, its crew sat in silence, watching the stars ahead, each one knowing they were leaving safe space behind. Commander Elara Voss stood at the bridge window. Her eyes stayed fixed on the emptiness, even though her crew could see nothing there. She had read every report, every whisper, every broken message. She knew something was hiding, and she intended to find it. "Signal range extended," said the sensor officer. His voice was calm, but his hands shook slightly. "No contacts, but the system feels wrong. Too quiet." The crew didn't laugh. They felt it too. The stars here seemed dimmer, as if light itself feared to shine. Gravity scanners twitched, showing tiny shifts, like massive objects moving but leaving no trace. "Stay sharp," Elara ordered. "We're not alone. Not here." Hours passed. The ship glided through the dark, silent except for the low hum of machinery. The crew tried to remain steady, but tension thickened with every minute. Then the lights flickered. Not once. Not twice. They blinked as though something outside had reached through the walls of the ship and touched the power itself. "Report," Elara demanded. "No damage," engineering replied quickly. But it wasn't us. It came from outside. The crew froze. How could something outside cause their lights to flicker? No enemy ship was near. Nothing showed on sensors. Yet the shadow pressed closer, unseen but felt by every beating heart on board. Then came the sound. At first it was faint, like static crawling through the comms. But it grew louder, twisting into a whisper, a chorus of voices layered together. They spoke in no known language, yet the crew felt the meaning in their bones. "You should not have come." One of the younger officers gripped his chair so hard his knuckles turned white. "Commander, do you hear it?" Elara nodded slowly. She heard it. Every crew member did. The shadow was not just outside, it was inside their minds. For the first time in her career, fear tried to claw at her control. But Elara did not step back. She leaned forward, staring into the black beyond the glass. "We've heard your voice," she said quietly. "Now show your face." As if the void obeyed, the stars shifted. One by one, constellations bent out of place, swallowed by something vast. A shape emerged, darker than space itself, edges glowing faintly like dying embers. It was no ship. It was too large, too ancient, too wrong. The crew gasped. Even seasoned veterans felt their throats tighten. Humanity had faced war, invasion, extinction, and always survived. But this was not war. This was something else. Something that had been here long before them, long before most civilizations were even born. The shadow opened like a wound in the sky, and light vanished inside it. The comms screamed with voices again, louder, sharper, pressing against human skulls. "Leave. Or be unmade." Elara's jaw tightened. She knew retreat was safe. She knew survival meant turning back, warning others, and letting the galaxy argue about what to do next. But she also knew why Resolute was here. Humanity did not come to hide from shadows. Humanity came to drag them into the light. "Charge weapons," she ordered. The bridge fell silent. No one questioned her. No one argued. Humanity had always walked into the dark, carrying fire. The first human shot lanced into the void. For a moment it seemed swallowed like everything else. Then the shadow stirred. It shifted, and for the first time, the galaxy's hidden face began to unveil itself. The crew stared, hearts pounding, as the shadow finally moved to strike back. The hunt had begun. The first blast from the Resolute burned into the black shape. For a second, it seemed useless. The energy beam vanished into the darkness as if the shadow swallowed light itself. No explosion. No damage. Nothing. Then something changed. The crew felt it before they saw it. The ship trembled, not from an attack, but from the weight of being noticed. The shadow was no longer just watching, it was turning toward them. "Contact confirmed," the sensor officer whispered, though his voice cracked. It's alive." The shape grew larger, stretching across the view like a nightmare horizon. Its surface shifted like liquid metal, patterns sliding across in shapes the human mind could barely follow. It was not a ship. It was not even a creature in the way humans understood. It was something else, something that lived inside the dark itself. The whispering voices inside the crew's heads grew louder, clearer. They no longer sounded distant, they sounded personal, as if each crew member was being spoken to directly. "You are fragile. You are dust. Leave this place." The crew felt pressure behind their eyes. Some clutched their heads, others fought to breathe. One officer fell from his chair, convulsing as the voices drilled deeper. "Block it," Ilara barked. "Activate the mind shield dampeners. Now." Within seconds, defense systems powered up. A faint pulse spread through the ship, pushing back against the unseen grip. The voices faded slightly, though the pressure in their skulls never disappeared. "Commander," said the weapons officer, his face pale, "our attack did nothing. It's like shooting light into a black hole." Ilara's eyes narrowed. "Then we'll find another way. Humanity always finds another way." The shadow shifted again, and this time it attacked. There was no flash, no beam, no missile. Instead, the Resolute's hull screamed. Panels buckled, alarms wailed, and the ship was yanked sideways as if grabbed by an invisible hand. Sparks showered across the bridge. The shadow was not fighting with weapons, it was twisting space itself. "Stabilizers failing," cried the helmsman. "We're being pulled inside." On the main screen, the shadow opened wider, like a giant mouth ready to swallow them whole. Stars bent around it, light breaking apart as space folded into the void. For 1 second, fear nearly broke the crew. But then Ilara's voice cut through the chaos. "Steady. Hold together. We're not prey, we're predators. Fire torpedoes, full spread." 6 torpedoes launched, streaking into the blackness. This time, the shadow reacted. The surface rippled violently, like water hit by stones. A scream, louder than before, echoed inside their skulls. For the first time, the shadow felt pain. The crew's fear twisted into something else, hope. "It works," shouted the weapons officer. "Commander, it actually works." Ilara didn't smile. She knew better. If the shadow was hurt, it would strike harder. Reload. Double the payload. Keep firing until it bleeds light. The torpedoes slammed again and again, each impact shaking the darkness. Cracks of pale blue light tore across the surface of the shadow, glowing like broken chains. The creature, or whatever it was, pulled back slightly, as though deciding whether to retreat or fight. But then the galaxy answered. From beyond the shadow, more shapes moved. Not one. Not two. Dozens. Hundreds. All sliding forward, silent and endless. The crew stared in horror as the truth unveiled itself. The shadow wasn't alone. It was one of many. "My God!" the sensor officer whispered. "They've been here all along. Watching us. Hiding under the stars." Every ship in the galaxy, every missing fleet, every whisper, it all made sense now. This wasn't a single monster. This was a hidden empire, older and darker than anything recorded. The bridge fell silent as the truth settled over them. They were not facing one enemy. They were facing an entire race of shadows. Ilara's jaw tightened. She felt the same fear as her crew, but she refused to let it win. "Send word to Earth," she ordered. "Tell them what we've seen. Tell them the shadows are real." The comm officer hesitated. "Commander, they're jamming long-range signals." "Then find a way," Ilara snapped. "Burn it into the void if you have to. Humanity must know." The ship shook again as the shadows closed in, circling like predators. The Resolute was a single ship against an ocean of darkness. Retreat seemed impossible. Survival seemed hopeless. And yet, not one crew member abandoned their post. Not one voice called for surrender. Humanity had never backed down from impossible odds. "Commander," the helmsman said quietly, "if we die here—" "We won't die," Ilara cut in, her voice firm as steel. "If this ship falls, our fire will still burn. Humanity's light will reach them. Even shadows cannot hide forever." The Shadow Fleet surged forward. The Resolute charged weapons again. Sparks lit the bridge, and every crew member braced for the fight. For the first time in history, the galaxy's hidden shadows had revealed themselves. And for the first time, humanity stood in their way. The war in the dark had begun. The Shadow Fleet moved like a tide. No engines, no flames, no signals, just silence. Hundreds of shapes drifted closer, their edges bending the stars, their forms impossible to measure. Inside the Resolute, alarms screamed. The ship's shields flared under invisible strikes. Panels rattled, consoles sparked, and every heartbeat on the bridge raced like thunder. "Shields holding," the officer reported, though sweat dripped down his face. "But if they all hit us together—" "They won't get the chance," Commander Ilara Voss cut in. Her voice was steady, even when the ship trembled. "Helm, keep us moving. Weapons, fire at will. We break through, or we burn here." The Resolute dove forward, engines roaring. Beams of plasma lanced into the nearest shadow, tearing open cracks of glowing blue light across its surface. The creature writhed, shrieking in voices that rattled the bones of every crew member. But as one shadow staggered back, 5 more moved in. "They're surrounding us," the helmsman shouted. "Good," Ilara said coldly. "That means they're afraid." Torpedoes launched in rapid fire, streaking into the dark. Explosions flared, bright against the black. The crew cheered, but the celebration died quickly. The shadows did not retreat. They swarmed. The hull groaned as unseen claws dragged across it. A corridor on Deck 4 collapsed, sucking air into space. Automated bulkheads slammed shut, saving the rest of the ship, but everyone knew the shadows were breaking them apart piece by piece. "Casualties reported on Deck 4, said the damage officer, his voice shaking. We lost 20 people." The bridge went silent. 20 lives gone in seconds. Yet no one looked away from their stations. Fear was there, yes, but also fury. Humanity had always mourned its dead, but it never stopped fighting. "Helm," Ilara ordered, her voice sharp. "Set a course straight through their center. We're not running, we're cutting a hole." The helmsman blinked. "Commander, that's suicide. They'll crush us." Ilara's eyes burned. "If we scatter, they'll hunt us down. If we fight head-on, we might make it out." "Do it." The ship lurched forward. Torpedoes lit the void, tearing into the thickest part of the swarm. Shadows screamed and twisted away, some collapsing into fragments of burning blue dust. The Resolute punched through, guns firing non-stop. But the shadows adapted. One split open like a wound in space, spilling a wave of dark tendrils that lashed across the ship's hull. Sparks exploded on the bridge as systems shorted out. The lights flickered again, plunging the crew into brief, terrifying darkness. Shields down to 30%. Engines straining. Weapons overheating. The Resolute was bleeding. Ilara gripped the command rail so tightly her knuckles turned white. She knew they couldn't fight forever. But she had another mission, one more important than survival. The galaxy had to know. Humanity had to be warned. Communications, she barked. Can we punch through their jamming yet? The comm officer shook his head, his hands flying across controls. Not fully. But, maybe short-range bursts. If we piggyback on their own distortions, we could slip a signal between them. Do it, Ilara said. Even a fragment. Send our location, what we've seen, everything. The officer nodded and began transmitting. Bursts of data fired into the void, hidden in the ripples of the shadows themselves. Message away, he whispered. But I don't know if it will escape their reach. Ilara's voice was iron. It only needs to reach one human ear. That's enough. Another impact rocked the ship. The main screen showed 3 shadows slamming against their hull at once. Metal screamed, shields collapsed, and fire burst across the bridge. The crew fought to stay standing. Smoke filled the air. The Resolute was dying. Commander, the helmsman said, coughing. If we keep fighting, we won't last another minute. Ilara looked around at her crew, bloodied, burned, exhausted, but still fighting. She felt the same fear pressing at her heart, but she refused to let it win. Then we'll make this minute count, she said. She turned to the weapons officer. Arm the Nova Charge. The bridge froze. The Nova Charge was humanity's deadliest weapon, a collapsing warhead strong enough to vaporize a moon. But using it this close meant the Resolute would be caught in the blast. Commander, the officer said slowly. That's a suicide order. Ilara's voice softened, but her eyes never wavered. If the shadows bury us here, no one will know the truth. But if we tear them open, if we show the galaxy what hides in the dark, then every human will rise to fight. That's worth our lives. Silence filled the bridge. Then, one by one, the crew nodded. No one argued. No one begged. Humanity had always been willing to pay the highest price for survival. The Nova Charge armed. The ship's systems shook as the weapon powered up, its energy core glowing bright. The shadows sensed it. They rushed forward in a frenzy, desperate to silence the human ship before it could strike. Charge at 100%, the weapons officer reported. His voice was steady now, filled with grim pride. Ready on your command. Ilara stood tall. Smoke curled around her, alarms blared, shadows screamed outside, but her voice cut through it all. Then let's show them, she said. Let's show them what it means to fight humanity. The countdown began. The shadows closed in, and the Resolute prepared to burn the dark. The Nova Charge ticked down, its energy core burning brighter than any star. The bridge of the Resolute glowed with its light, a harsh reminder that this was the crew's final stand. Shadows swarmed outside, clawing and twisting, desperate to crush the humans before the weapon fired. 10 seconds, the weapons officer announced. The crew braced. No one spoke. No one cried. Their faces were pale but steady. Humanity had always stood against impossible odds. The shadows shrieked in unison, a chorus of alien fury inside every mind. Do not dare. You are nothing. You are dust. Ilara Voss gritted her teeth. If we're dust, she whispered, then watch how dust burns. The timer reached 0. The Nova Charge detonated. A star was born in the void. White fire burst outward, ripping space itself apart. Shadows screamed, their massive bodies tearing like paper. Dozens, hundreds, thousands of them collapsed into blue dust that scattered into nothing. The wave burned brighter than suns, lighting the galaxy's hidden corners. The Resolute was caught at the heart of it. The ship buckled, tore, and shattered. The bridge windows cracked as the fire rushed in. Crew members were thrown from their stations. Yet their faces were not filled with fear, they were filled with pride. They knew they had struck a blow the galaxy would never forget. And then, silence. The fire faded. The wreckage of the Resolute floated in pieces, glowing faintly against the dying light. But the story did not end there. Fragments of the Nova explosion carried with them something more than destruction. The blast had forced the shadows to break open, and inside their broken forms, secrets were revealed. From the debris of the destroyed shadows, shapes emerged. Not alien monsters. Not living void creatures. Machines. Ancient, twisted machines built of black alloy and pulsing cores. They had been hiding inside the darkness, wrapped in cloaks of energy that bent space and crushed light. They weren't just creatures of shadow. They were engineered. Designed. The survivors of other species had long whispered about the dark beyond, but none had imagined this truth. The shadows weren't predators of nature. They were weapons. Someone, or something, had built them. The broken machines drifted silently in the aftermath of the Nova blast. But not all of them were destroyed. From beyond the reach of the fire, larger shapes began to stir. The survivors. Colossal shadows, 10 times the size of the rest, moved slowly into view. Their forms were clearer now, outlines of impossible structures with spires and glowing cores. They hadn't even joined the battle. They had been watching. The crew that still clung to life aboard the shattered Resolute saw them through cracked viewports and broken screens. A few had survived the blast, burned, bleeding, but alive. One of them, Lieutenant Wren, coughed as he pulled himself across the ruined bridge. Blood streaked his face, but his eyes burned with defiance. We did it," he rasped. "We showed them." But Commander Elara Voss still breathed. Half crushed under debris, she forced herself upright. Pain racked her body, but her mind was sharp. She stared at the colossal shadows moving closer. "No," she whispered. This was only the beginning. The largest shadow leaned forward, its form blotting out half the stars. The voices returned, deeper and heavier than before. "We see you now. We know your fire. Humanity has declared war." Elara felt the weight of those words pierce her soul. The Resolute was gone, her crew nearly dead, but the signal they had sent, it had gone out. Somewhere, somehow, Earth would know. Humanity would rise. Her lips curled into a weak smile. "Good," she whispered back. "Because we've been waiting for a real fight." The surviving shadows turned away, retreating into the black. They had been wounded, exposed, but not destroyed. Their empire stretched farther than anyone imagined. They would return. And now, humanity would be ready. Far across the galaxy, the fragments of the Resolute's last transmission traveled faster than light, slipping past jammers, carried by the cracks in the shadow's defenses. Somewhere, someone would hear it. The war in the dark was no longer a secret. It was coming. And humanity, for the first time, had seen the enemy's true face. The message from the Resolute reached Earth as little more than fragments of broken data and ghostly images. Static-filled words. Screams. Explosions. Then a single clear phrase spoken in Commander Elara Voss's voice. "The shadows are real. They are machines. They are coming." The transmission ended there. On Earth, silence filled the War Council chamber. Generals, admirals, scientists, and diplomats stared at the flickering screen. They had seen battles before. They had seen invasions, plagues, rebellions. But this was different. "These images," said Admiral Kane, his voice low, "show an enemy we do not understand. They bend light. They twist gravity. And there are thousands of them." "Thousands we've seen," corrected Dr. Mora, chief scientist. The explosion revealed only a fraction. If they are machines, built for war, then there may be millions hidden out there. An entire empire cloaked in shadow. The council erupted in arguments. Some demanded caution. Others insisted on immediate war. A few suggested retreating into human space, fortifying Earth and abandoning the stars beyond. But the human voice that silenced the chamber came not from a soldier, but from a survivor. On the screen, Elara Voss's final message replayed. Her battered face, her cracked voice. Humanity does not hide. We fight. Tell them. Fire burns even in the dark. The council went quiet. Everyone understood. Earth could not run. Not now. Within hours, the order spread. Humanity was preparing for war. Across the colonies, fleets stirred. Shipyards that had been dormant lit up again. Factories shifted from civilian goods to weapons. Training academies overflowed as volunteers signed up, their eyes burning with the same fury that once carried humanity through centuries of war. But humanity was not alone in the galaxy. Word of the Resolute's final stand leaked through hidden channels. Other civilizations intercepted fragments of the message, though most did not believe it. On the world of the Zeeth, a reptilian elder laughed bitterly. Humans always imagine monsters in the dark. This is another lie. A trick to frighten us into war. On the planet Alvarin, where tall crystalline beings ruled, scholars debated. If shadows exist, why strike only humans? Why not reveal themselves long ago? The great powers of the galaxy argued. Some dismissed the threat entirely. Others mocked humanity for seeing ghosts. A few feared the truth but lacked the courage to act. And so, while Earth prepared, the rest of the galaxy remained blind. In orbit around Earth, the Titan-class yards burned with new life. A new fleet was rising, faster, heavier, deadlier than before. Humans studied the fragments of shadow machines revealed by the Nova Blast. They tore apart the data, mapping every weakness, every strange alloy, every trace of energy signature. The scientists were clear. The shadows could not be destroyed with ordinary weapons. They fed on energy, swallowed light. But the Nova charge had worked. Torpedoes had cracked them. There was a path to victory, if humanity could build the right tools. And so the Shadow War project began. Every mind, every resource, every ounce of human fury bent toward one goal: find a way to burn the shadows out of existence. But as humanity built, the shadows watched. In the far reaches of the void, the colossal machines that had survived the Nova Blast stirred. Their fractured forms healed, reshaping themselves with flowing black alloy. The voices whispered across the galaxy, unheard by most, but heavy in the minds of those sensitive to the void. The humans are fire. The humans will resist. The humans must be erased. For the first time, the Shadow Empire prepared to strike openly. Back on Earth, Admiral Kane stood on the command balcony overlooking the construction yards. Dozens of warships floated in orbit, incomplete but already armed. He knew the shadows would not wait. They would come soon, and when they came, the galaxy would not stand together. Humanity would stand alone. He placed his hand on the cold steel rail and whispered to himself, "Then we'll show them what it means to face a death world species." The first shadow strike came without warning. Human colonies on the edge of known space fell silent in a single night. No distress calls. No evacuation ships. Just silence. When scout vessels arrived days later, they found only drifting wreckage. Cities were gone, burned out of existence. Millions of people vanished. Admiral Kane stood at the war table, his jaw tight, his eyes dark with fury. They've moved from hiding to slaughter. This is their first blow. It won't be their last. The Shadow War project was not yet complete. Humanity's new fleet was still half-built, many of its weapons experimental. But there was no more time. When the shadows struck again, it was against the colony of Helios Prime. This time, humanity was ready. The new fleet, 20 warships strong, dropped out of hyperspace in formation. They were Titan-class and Hammer-class ships, bristling with weapons designed to tear apart even the strongest armor. Their hulls gleamed with reinforced plating, their engines burned bright. At the center of the fleet stood the vanguard, humanity's new flagship. Admiral Kane watched the battlefield unfold from its bridge. On the horizon of space, the shadows appeared. They came in silence, as they always did. Dozens of black shapes sliding forward, twisting the stars around them. They seemed to drink the light, bending space into a dark whirlpool. "Contact confirmed," the sensor officer reported. His voice shook despite the training drilled into him. 40 enemy signatures. No heat. No energy trails. Just shadows. The bridge fell silent as the fleet braced for its first true battle. "Open fire," Kane ordered. The humans struck first. Beams of plasma and volleys of torpedoes streaked into the void. Explosions lit the darkness, tearing into the nearest shadows. Cracks of blue light split across their surfaces, just as on the Resolute. The human fleet cheered as two shadows collapsed into fragments, scattering into dust. But then the enemy answered. The shadows surged forward. No missiles. No beams. They struck with gravity itself. Invisible waves slammed into the fleet, bending ships like toys. The Hammer-class Iron Claw screamed as its hull split apart, torn into pieces without a single shot fired. Shields collapsing on the left wing. "We've lost the Iron Claw." The shadows pressed harder, swarming the fleet. Their tendrils lashed out, wrapping around ships, crushing armor, bending metal. The screams of dying crews echoed across comm channels before static cut them off. But humanity did not break. "Counterattack!" Kane roared. "Fire the Shadow Breakers!" From the Vanguard's belly, the new weapons unleashed. They were torpedoes, but not like the old ones. These carried destabilizers, designed to shatter the strange alloys of the shadow machines. The torpedoes struck, and the effect was instant. Where they hit, shadows tore apart violently, ripped from within. 5, 6, 7 shadows collapsed in seconds, their forms unraveling like smoke. The human fleet roared with victory. For the first time in history, the shadows bled heavily. But the enemy was not finished. From the edge of the battlefield, larger forms emerged. Colossal shadows, the same giants seen when the Resolute fell. Their bodies stretched for kilometers, their cores glowing like dying stars. One opened its maw wide, and the void itself bent inward. Entire debris fields vanished into its jaws. It was not a ship. It was a devourer. The human fleet faltered. Even Kane felt a chill run down his spine. But he clenched his fists and barked, "All ships, focus fire. Bring it down before it reaches the colony." The fleet obeyed. Torpedoes and plasma cut into the colossal shadow, peeling away chunks of black alloy. But the giant kept coming, swallowing everything in its path. Then the shadow struck back. A gravity wave slammed into the fleet. The Stormbreaker, a Titan-class warship, was crushed in seconds. Its hull twisted like paper, its core exploding in a burst of flame. Another ship vanished entirely, dragged screaming into the Devourer's maw. The battle became chaos. Ships fired wildly, shadows tore them apart, alarms screamed across every deck. Yet humanity refused to run. For every ship lost, another fought harder. For every shadow strike, humans answered with torpedoes, with plasma, with fury. Admiral Kane stood at the heart of it, his voice steady, his orders sharp. His eyes never left the colossal devourer as it pushed closer to the colony. If it reached Helios Prime, millions would die. "Prepare the Nova Lance," Kane ordered. The bridge froze. The Nova Lance was humanity's newest experimental weapon, born from the lessons of the Resolute. It was powerful enough to shatter a planet. But firing it too close risked destroying their own fleet. "Commander," the weapons officer said softly, "if we fire now, we may not survive." Kane's jaw tightened. "If we don't, Helios Prime won't survive either. Ready the weapon." The Nova Lance began to charge, its core glowing white-hot. The colossal shadow sensed it and turned its full fury on the Vanguard. Gravity waves slammed into the ship, crushing bulkheads, tearing decks apart. The crew screamed as systems collapsed. Fire burst across the bridge. The vanguard shook violently, seconds from being ripped apart. Nova Lance at full charge, the weapons officer shouted over the chaos. Kane gritted his teeth. His ship was dying, but his voice was iron. Fire. The Nova Lance unleashed. A beam brighter than any star cut through the void, slamming directly into the Devourer's core. For a moment, the shadow resisted, swallowing light, bending space, fighting to survive. Then it shattered. The explosion lit the battlefield like dawn. The colossal shadow tore open, fragments scattering like broken glass. The shockwave ripped through nearby enemies, tearing them apart. The human fleet cheered through broken comms. But the victory came at a cost. The vanguard was crippled. The Nova Lance had drained its core, its systems were failing, its hull torn apart. Admiral Kane stood on the burning bridge, his face lit by the dying light of his ship. "We held the line," he whispered. "And the shadows know it. The battle was not over." Many shadows still lurked in the dark. But humanity had faced them head-on and survived. For the first time, the galaxy's hidden empire had been wounded in open war. And humanity had proven it would not break. The wreck of the Vanguard drifted in silence, its hull split open, its decks burning. But its last shot, the Nova Lance, had torn a hole in the shadow's unstoppable advance. The humans had won a battle. Not the war. From the bridge's shattered viewport, Admiral Kane stared into the dark, blood running down his temple. His flagship was dying, but he was still alive. And so was humanity's will to fight. "Transmit this across every frequency," he ordered, his voice hoarse but unbroken. "Let the galaxy hear it." The comm officer patched through. Static crackled, but Kane's voice carried like thunder. "We have seen the shadows. We have fought them. And we have killed them. Humanity will not kneel. If you can hear me, if you still live, know this, the shadows can bleed." Across colonies, across hidden outposts, across distant stars, survivors listened. Alien races who had long feared the shadows heard something they thought impossible: resistance. For the first time in centuries, hope stirred. But the shadows were not finished. In the days that followed Helios Prime, more colonies came under attack. Entire fleets of shadows surged forward, greater than before. They moved with purpose now, striking at humanity with brutal efficiency. They had been wounded, and now they sought revenge. The human fleet, battered but unbroken, regrouped. The surviving Titan-class ships joined what was left of the Hammer-class line. Engineers worked around the clock, welding plates, rebuilding engines, rearming with Shadowbreaker torpedoes. Every worker knew the truth. There was no safe distance anymore. The shadows would find them all. On the command deck of a replacement flagship, the indomitable Admiral Kane stood tall before his fleet. His voice was steel. "This is not just about Earth. Not just about our colonies. This is about every race the shadows have devoured. They have fed on fear for centuries. Today, we end that." The fleet roared with approval. Then came the final signal. Scouts detected it first, a massive convergence point at the edge of the Perseus Rift. A gathering of shadows unlike anything seen before. Hundreds, maybe thousands, of their warforms circling a colossal construct. The enemy was building something. A gateway. If it was completed, the shadows could pour into human space in endless numbers. The war would be over before it truly began. Kane's decision was instant. We strike the rift. We end this at the source. The human fleet jumped into the void. The rift was a scar across space, a storm of gravity and light. And within it, monsters. The shadows moved in endless waves, circling the massive gateway at their center. It pulsed with alien energy, a black sun waiting to ignite. The humans arrived in silence, their ships sliding into formation. The sight before them would have broken lesser beings. Thousands of shadows waiting, silent and patient. Kane stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, his fists clenched behind his back. Forward. All ships. This is the line. If we fall here, the galaxy falls with us. The shadows moved first. They surged like a living ocean, waves of darkness rushing to consume the fleet. The void became chaos, beams of plasma, torpedoes exploding, ships torn apart by invisible claws. A Titan class was ripped in half. A Hammer class detonated in a blinding fireball. But humanity struck back with fury. Shadowbreaker torpedoes ripped into the swarm, tearing ships apart in brilliant explosions. The new fleet's plasma lances cut through black hulls like fire through paper. Dozens of shadows died in seconds, collapsing into clouds of shattered alloy. Still, the tide pressed on. The gateway pulsed brighter, almost complete. If it opened, no weapon in humanity's arsenal would matter. "Bring us closer," Kane barked. "Right into the heart of it. All power to weapons." The Indomitable led the charge, its guns blazing, its hull burning. Human ships followed, a spearhead of fire and steel driving into the swarm. The fleet reached the gateway. It was massive, kilometers wide, its surface writhing with shadow energy. "Target the core," Kane ordered. "We cut their path before it opens." Every ship fired. The void shook. Explosions tore across the gateway's surface. Cracks appeared, glowing white. But the shadows fought desperately to defend it, throwing themselves at the humans with suicidal ferocity. The Indomitable was struck again and again, its hull cracking, its decks collapsing. Shields gone. Engines failing. The ship was dying, but Kane stood firm. His eyes never left the burning gateway. He knew what had to be done. "Helm," he said quietly. "Ram the core." The bridge froze. "Admiral." Kane turned, his gaze steady. "If we fire, it won't be enough. That thing will open. The only way to stop it is to take it down ourselves. Humanity was born in fire. We will finish this in fire." No one argued. The crew saluted. The Indomitable turned toward the gateway. Engines roared one last time. The shadows swarmed to stop it, but the fleet held the line, throwing everything they had, torpedoes, beams, even their own ships, into the swarm. Humanity's final defense. The Indomitable plunged into the gateway's heart. For one moment, the void was silent. Then came the light. A detonation brighter than any star ripped across the rift. The gateway imploded, shadows torn apart in every direction. Entire fleets vanished, burned away in the inferno. The shockwave roared for light years, leaving nothing but silence. The shadows were gone. In the wreckage, broken human ships drifted, but they were alive. Survivors wept, laughed, and cheered. Humanity had stood against the greatest terror the galaxy had ever known, and won. Admiral Kane was gone, his ship with him. But his words lived on. "The shadows can bleed." And the galaxy knew now, humanity was not prey. Humanity was the fire that would burn back the dark.